Okay, can we quickly count off, starting with Zachary over here?
It's completed.
3,
4, 5, 6, 7, 8,
9,
10, 11, 13,
14,
16,
17,
18.
19.
20.
We're missing one. Who are we missing?
Hana.
Hana. Again.
what is
Matter
it?
because I'm still 14.
Yeah.
What up
All right,
with
so Hana, once again, this is for you. A, you just downloaded on the top of Schoology a textbook. It's the 4th edition of our textbook. Our textbook is the 5th edition. That means the page numbers won't be the same. I repeat, that means the page numbers won't be the same. We do our best.
Okay.
But that and why? Have it in your computer because sometimes it will be useful for you to actually like do some work on the textbook in class. We don't have a class set. That's horrible. I don't want you carrying books back and forth. So, all right. So, the information's essentially the same. So that's that. B, I don't want to give quizzes in class. I want you to do the quizzes at home. Tell me why it's not a bad idea to say, do the quizzes at home for a grade, and you won't cheat, because if you do cheat,
You got on the cheating.
you're just hurting yourself. Thanks, Ishan. Why?
You won't do good on the AP.
Because you won't do good on the AP exam. What are these quizzes for? How much are these quizzes worth? How much are these quizzes worth?
Practically nothing.
0.5% of your grade. So, keep listening. I'm going to make these quizzes repeatable. They won't show you what the correct answers are. That way you will have to actually do a little bit of work to get the correct answers. And finally, no matter how many tries it takes you to get 100% in an A, Mr. Bizzett gives quizzes during class time. I don't want to give quizzes during class time. We can use class time for things other than quizzes. And he lets the students who do poorly on the quiz re-quiz. So I'm letting you do it for a higher grade. So I'm letting you do exactly the same thing at home. You will also have the opportunity to redo these quizzes because they're on Schoology. And so, you know what? Unit 1's going to be old news by the time we hit Unit 3. So you can go back and you can keep on reinforcing these things moving forward. So those are all the reasons. We will use instructional time for instruction, not for quizzes. And the only person you cheat is yourself in 2 ways. You won't do well on the AP exam, and you won't do well on the exams in this class that are called tests, not quizzes, because the quizzes quiz you on what will be on the test in class. Is that clear? Jay, is that clear? Okay. So that's what? Oh no, really? Oh, we're still recording. Sorry, Hana, the pewter is doing confusing things to me. All right. Okay then. So your homework tonight, a bit of a sloppy day. You'll just have to bear with that. Last week was brutal. Speaking of which, so my goal. I spent the weekend grading. Last week was brutal. So many meetings, parent night, on and on and on. So not a lot of time to actually like plan or do school or do grading. I did manage to get through my world studies 9th graders narratives. Who am I? Those of you who are sophomores, you'll remember those with fondness. All right, so that's what I spent yesterday doing. And so my goal is to have these 2 stacks of B2 and B3 comparative essays assessed to get back to you next class, and then we can talk about the comparative essay writing skill. Generate any questions that you have about that essay writing skill so that I'm priming the pump so you can come asking the questions. More than one person has said, I'm unclear on this or that, so let's have those conversations together so that we have them once, not 3 times. Okay, now. All right, so today is August 31st. We're on journals. You can lower your screens, please. And today we will do periodization advanced, and we will also do the Persian Empire.
Started with.
again, our goal today, we won't get through the Greeks, we will get through the Persians. And so the first thing, so you should have, again, your title, Persians and Bronze and Iron Age, Bronze and Iron Age, Bronze and Iron Age, Bronze and Iron Age. Persians, Bronze and Iron, and new peoplings. New peoplings. To people is a verb. You know, the very first thing we did was big geography and the peopling of the earth. To people. So humans peopled the earth. We saw maps of them doing it. What does that mean? Sydney, what does it mean when we talk about humans peopling the earth?
Kind of, would be like expanding the population.
The migrations out of Africa, and they peopled different regions, right? To people. Have you peopled today? Okay, you're all peopling this room right now. So then first things first. Simply put, look at yourselves and tell each other when the Bronze Age in Mesopotamia began. Hello? Look at each other and tell each other when the Bronze Age in Mesopotamia began. Don't look for your notes. You should just use this. This you should know. Don't look at your notes. This you should know. Hannah, can you and Catherine?
7,000.
I feel like it was.
Okay, if you said 3000 BCE, close enough. Close enough. Close enough. Good on you. Okay, now, when did the Bronze Age in the Mediterranean and Middle East end? And what ended it?
Yeah, the start of the Iron Age.
The start of the Iron Age. So it's kind of an important question. A, if we're like making a big deal about bronze being replaced by iron, such a big deal that we actually name a new age after it. Why is iron such a big deal? This is an example of a term that I want you to put in a common language for us to use. It's a very useful thing because it's part of historical thinking, how to think historically. And so iron is an example of what we will call marker events. These are events that really do mark a major like change over time, a discontinuity over time. So iron replacing bronze is a marker event. The question I have for you is, can you like think, perhaps this, perhaps that, can you think why? And also when? You can talk to each other.
Oh, new time.
Are we all working together? Like, is it crazy? I'm cool with that. You guys are? Cool, cool. So,
Yeah,
Yeah, more efficient, stronger.
what?
I mean, there's science and more practical.
How does that have to do with the
Oh, we? Oh, I've heard that term. It's like a slang term.
It's really
Yeah, it's a derogatory term. But like, it's usually like insinuated towards non-Japanese people. Which is, I don't know, I don't really like it. It's kind of a... That's what? No. No, we use in Lebanese. Like, yeah.
Okay. Because I didn't get through last class as much as I wanted to, I'm going to try to be a little bit more accelerated this class.
great conversation about
So it's squeeze yourself in the shoulder time. If anybody said, okay, iron was disruptive. When iron replaced bronze, it was disruptive. If anybody like, why is this important enough to be a marker event? Because iron plows, increased productive yield, increased harvests, more food, more people, populations start exploding. And suddenly that means we need to reorganize government because we've got more people now. Our cities are bigger. Things are now getting harder to control. That's the first thing. Second thing, besides iron plows, what's the other major thing that iron, thank you, Fern.
It revolutionized weaponry.
Weaponry. So warfare becomes far more destructive now. And so, when can you think of a period, can you think of any period at all when, say, Egypt fell on hard times, or Mesopotamia fell on hard times? And here's where it's helpful to actually think in terms of centuries, not exact dates, or even millennia. Let me underscore that. What's our heading for this? Periodization. Categories, or what? Okay, categories. AP World says, you've seen the rubric, and I'll, to remind you of the AP rubric and how you score points, it's a very odd system. You have to get a perfect 7 out of 7 on the core rubric, the basic rubric. You have to get a perfect 7 out of 7 on that in order to qualify for 2 more points to get a 9. If you get a 6 out of 7, then you don't get the opportunity for those final 2 points to get an 8. You must get the core 7. And then they go, okay, core 7, let's go on to the expanded rubric, because these kids are like on fire, right? This one is. So blah, blah, blah. So one way to make sure that you hit that core rubric is to always, and this is repetition, I've already told you this, to always know the early, middle, and late times of empires, dynasties, ages, like the Bronze Age. So, please hear me. That does not mean memorize exact years. It almost never means that. After all, can we say what year iron was invented? No. So, what is the broadest time unit that we could use to talk about early, middle, big time unit? What's a big time unit we could use very well? Millennium, exactly. So, our answer for the late Bronze Age is or the early Iron Age, because they overlap, is the late 2nd millennium BC. In other words, so what century would that be? Because you could also say around such and such a century. What's a late 2nd millennium BCE century?
18,000.
Do you know the answer to that question? Okay, so we need to understand this term millennium and BCE. What is millennium? It's a unit of how many years? 1,000. 1,000 years. That's a millennium. So the 3rd millennium BCE begins in 3,000 and ends in 2,000. The 2nd millennium BCE begins in 2,000 and ends in
1,000.
And the 1st millennium BCE begins in and ends in
0.
There's no such thing as 0, unfortunately, because of the Romans who made time calendars for the whole world, or the Christians who did it, whatever, the Spanish, whatever. They didn't have the 0 when they made the calendar. India hadn't gotten
it was
into
the
it yet,
Indians, yeah.
through the Muslims, dumb Europeans. So we have this problem. There is no year 0. But in any case, so 1 BCE or 1 AD. So, okay, so what is a late 20th century, a late 2nd millennium century? We can say the Iron Age began in the late 2nd millennium. Give me a century. In other words, the Xth century BCE.
1600.
Huh?
1600.
Late. We go from, this is the early, 3000, the early 3rd millennium BCE is 3000. The late 3rd millennium BCE is 2000, because this happened first, 2000 happened later. So the late 2nd millennium BCE would be around what century?
12,000.
At the latest. So we could say,
12,000, 13,000.
around the 12th century BCE, right? Or in the late 2nd millennium BCE, you're saying the same thing. Those are just 2 ways to not think I have to have dates in my head, because you don't. You have to have general time frames. There are not that many of them. The problem is getting started. Once you see that we're talking big, huge chunks of time, then that's really all you need. Getting back to the AP exam. They talk about specific historical evidence. That's Mr. Bissett loves that. S-H-E, she. She points. And I was looking at comparative essays that AP gives us teachers to look at that have scored 8s, and they all start with this introductory sentence. Please? And they all start with this introductory sentence. In the late 18th century, the Industrial Revolution exploded across, blah, 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 right? And as a first sentence, before you get to your thesis, because it's about the Industrial Revolution, they just like go. I know the periodization, I know when it began. So, in the late 18th century, and you're like, good, this kid knows it. Kids who don't know it, it's obvious. Your ignorance is just glaring. So, it's not hard to do these things, okay? The Iron Age happens in the late 2nd millennium BCE. We haven't talked about it much, and so let's quickly, some people last class did know the civilization and region that discovered it first in the ancient Middle East Mediterranean. Anybody remember? They're almost never spoken of because they're not a major empire. Starts with an H, huh? Hittites. And you know what? I mean, if you want to know, just put 2 T's after Hit, you know, H-I-T-T-I-T-E-S. They were in modern-day Turkey, where they invented iron. And they were the only people who had iron weapons. And so what advantage does that give them against people who have bronze weapons? Obviously, it gives them all sorts of advantages. My iron sword can break your bronze sword like a teapot. So, America was in a similar situation about 60, 70 years ago with the atom bomb. The first person to have the new technology has an advantage until what?
Until someone else gets it.
Other people get it. And so the first person has the advantage. The Hittites had the advantage. Less important than the name of the Hittites, which never hurts, good to know, not must know, is where they were. Does anybody know the regional name? So this is now map stuff. You might want to make a different list, map stuff. Does anybody know the name of the region that is today called Turkey? I'll give you a hint. Starts with an A. Starts with an A-N. There we go. Anatolia. Anatolia. That is what we call Turkey today. I just want an eraser. Is that hard? Okay, I'm gonna curse like a non-English speaker. Hell and damnation. Anatolia. Put the word down, it'll be on a quiz. Very nice to say, oh, when in the mid-2nd millennium or the late 2nd millennium when the Hittites invented iron in Anatolia, you're just like, bam, you're killing it. You said Anatolia. You said where, you said when, roughly. All right, and so Anatolia. By the way, who here thinks they know a good bit about ancient Greek stuff? Because I love history and I know a good bit about the ancient Greek. Nobody? Nobody's going to take that challenge? What do we call the coast of Anatolia that there are Greek temples on because they sailed across from Greece to Turkey's coast, and Troy is there and all that. We call that a region. It has a regional name. Okay, you all know this word, ion, because you shop there. It's a region called Ionia. That's the Turkish coast. You can picture Turkey, and you can picture the coast next to the Greek Sea, the Aegean Sea, right? Ionia, coast of Anatolia. That'll become important later, so I figured I was throwing on there. I'll give you the other things that are going to become important. Between Mesopotamia and Iran, there's a range of mountains. That's why it's a different place. It's a marker place. Starts with a Z. Zagros. Z-A-G-R-O-S. The Zagros Mountains. Z-A-G-R-O-S. Zagros Mountains. Between the Tigris-Euphrates and Iran. They run north-south to separate Iraq from Iran. North-south, separating the Tigris-Euphrates River of Mesopotamia from Iran over here to its southeast. These will all become important because, again, notice, I just said Iran, that's Persia. We're talking about the coming of the Persian Empire. Okay, in any case now, we still haven't hit why really the effects of the Iron Age. And it's this. When did all of these new empires start bubbling up that just like came out of nowhere and kicked ass and took names in Mesopotamia? What's the earliest one that just came out of nowhere and just like... We talked about them last time.
Assyrians.
Assyrians. Assyrians? What happened to the Sumerians and Babylonians? What happened? Assyrians. And then after the Assyrians,
Babylon.
Neo-Babylonians. And then after the Neo-Babylonians,
Persians.
Persians. Okay, so what happened to those early Babylonians at the second millennium BCE? Simply put, well, here a map was, or a timeline would probably do better. Oh, really? Hell and the damnation. See, that's like completely grammatically incorrect cursing. That's why it's witty. For those of you who don't know how to curse grammatically correctly. Huh? Get away, get away, get away. Oh, hell and damnation. That's correct. I'm just modeling correct cursing. Those are all biblical terms. I'm not cursing. Okay. Okay, so that'll work. We can do that. Come on, you son of... Okay. Whoa, oh, hell and damnation. Really? Oh, no, it doesn't do it. Okay, look what happens here. Your textbook doesn't tell you in its timeline, but this is the Bronze Age. And you notice that they stop chapter 1 because that's pretty much the end of the Bronze Age in Mesopotamia. You've got early dynastic Sumer, 3rd millennium, 3000 BCE, and then you've got Akkad, and then you've got the 3rd dynasty of Ur, 2nd millennium BCE, early Bronze Age, middle Bronze Age, late Bronze Age. And then something weird happens that makes them say, okay, it's time to stop this story. And it is that there was just like, let's look at Egypt. By 1150, they're like, it's time to stop this story because something weird happened here. It's the end. It's the end of something. This Kassite thing. Who the hell are the Kassites, right? Who? Babylonians, we know them. Sumerians, we know them. Kassites? Who are Kassites? J. In the same way, Egypt, Old Kingdom, Middle Kingdom, New Kingdom. Do you notice the years are roughly the same? Late 2nd millennium BCE. Early Iron Age. And then we look, well, the Indus River is too geographically separated. We don't know what happened, but we do know this. There is evidence of massive, massive warfare and destruction all over this region that toppled empires and cities and everything. And it seems to be possibly immigrants, like pastoralists or invaders from outside of the civilized core region with iron weapons. We don't know, but what we do know is this: they raised utter hell. And there was a lot of destruction, but there's no records. There's not a lot of records about it, so we don't know much more than that. But what we do know is this would be like somebody nuking America and Germany and Beijing, hell, Tokyo, throw in any other powerful nation. Just nuking them all, right? It's like, oh, wow, something major just happened to all the powerful civilizations. And so it's time to end that story. And it seems to be related to iron. Again, I'm done with that. So the Iron Age is a completely new age. Do you think that China's Bronze Age is going to start at the same time, Orion? Is China going to come up with iron the same time that Mesopotamia does? I know you don't know. I'm asking you to think. You're not thinking.
No,
Because?
because they didn't get toppled so quickly.
Okay, well, at least you're thinking now.
I would say yes, just because they're in like somewhat of a remote.
I can't hear you, Sydney, but thank you.
So they're like
Okay, good. You're thinking. But now let's look at the map and rethink. Mesopotamia, Egypt, Anatolia. And look at the topography here. Welcome to the Eurasian continent. And somebody comes up with iron over here. So hell, somebody comes up with farming over here. Do you think that these people are going to know anything about that? Now I get a lot of no's when earlier. Orion, now that we've been able to look at some evidence, what do you think now?
The terrain.
The terrain make a sense.
Well, they couldn't like communicate with each other because it's very looks like rough terrain.
That's
so
right, terrain and distance,
Yeah.
right? And so it's true. The Bronze Age starts in China later. My point here is this. Regions that are very far removed, do you think that these two are going to come up with bronze and iron at the same time? God, no, not even agriculture. So, why am I telling you this? So that you don't sound like an idiot on AP. So that you don't make the mistake of saying what?
That everybody started the Iron Age.
That the Bronze Age started in 3000 here because it started in 3000 here. No, you must talk about regional marker events. All right. Yes?
I had a question. Like at this point, was the Warring States period going on?
No.
That's like way later,
That's
right?
first millennium.
Okay.
That's high Iron Age, we might call it.
Okay.
Okay, now, all right, so now we will get back to these two. All that you must know according to AP is where they are on a map. Done. There they are. Javans and Olmecs. Done. That's all you must know. But I like this word peoplings. Did we talk about peoplings?
Yes, you did.
Good. Okay. This is my second class. So here we are, new peoplings. Look at the map. Yes, those are new peoplings. But what other things do we see turning green with peoples that haven't been peopled before, besides China? Which is Thank you, the European continent. What else? Look closely. There's another one. It's more subtle. Greece. That's part of Europe.
Latin America.
We already mentioned them. We already mentioned Latin America. Sydney?
The far left corner has green in it.
Oh, that's just the page.
Oh.
No, that's a satellite spinning high above the late Neolithic Earth, peopled with. Dudes, what is this?
Africa?
The green part? You're liars. That's not Egypt. Don't you know where Egypt is?
North.
Egypt's over there.
Egypt is
It's over
north.
there.
Where does Egypt end? What's the top of Egypt?
It's
Egypt is up here above this green place.
Nubia.
Okay, yes. And so, what's our concept here? I said new peoplings and new civilizings. Notice we peopled first. That's just agriculture. That's just settlement. That's just settlement. That's not cities and civilization and all that stuff. It's not that. Sit up. You're making me tired with that posture. And so core civilizations are called core because they then spread and influence uncivilized, quote, people, simpler societies. And so here's our first example. You must know this because AP says you must know this. This is a quick must know. What is theme 3?
States and
State building.
state building.
Okay, and so expansion. Egypt builds and it expands southward. It's kind of cool, so let's just look at it for 1 second. Just because it makes me want to travel Egypt, and I'll tell you why. It really does. It makes me want to travel Egypt. And so why? Why, Mr. Bell? Why do you want to travel Egypt? Well, I'm so glad you asked. Because there's this woman there, and she's so fine. I'm kidding. Okay, so. Okay. See, that's Egypt. That's the north. The Nile River, which way does it flow? North to south or south to west? South to north. South to north. Okay, and Egypt stops here. And south of this is called Nubia. And that's what AP wants you to know. That there was a peoples called the Kingdom of Kush, Nubia. And they had things that the pharaohs didn't have in Egypt. And the pharaohs couldn't get it Egypt wanted to grow southward, but it couldn't. Why? Why wouldn't they be able to? It's still the desert, it's still the Nile. Why wouldn't they be able to? Talk, 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 talk. Maybe this, maybe that. Perhaps down there. Okay. Rub your shoulders if you said it's hard to sail beyond this point. Because there are big-ass boulders, big rocks, and waterfalls and stuff that you can't sail through or around. They're rapids that will smash your boat and your skull, and so that's just too dangerous to navigate. The entire, stop getting high on ink, the entire, Miley, I'm going to call your mom, tell her that you're sniffing glue. Where this turns, no, okay, so these things are called cataracts, cataract. And there are 6 cataracts of the Nile River. Just picture like, who's been to Tiger Leaping Gorge? In China, on the Yangtze River, the Tiger Leaping Gorge, right? So, yeah, they're like, is somebody doing something funny over here? I've noticed like 2 people like doing weird things out here. Okay, anyway. Cataracts. The cataract is, again, just picture as the Cyclops picking up big stones and throwing them in a river, and so now you'll die, you can't navigate it. There's rapids and waterfalls. There are 6 of them, and that's what kept the kingdoms of Egypt from being able to go down here and just expand and conquer what they wanted. Because if you look at this closely, you would see, okay, up here, what are Egypt's natural? Good to know, not much known. But it's interesting. The pharaohs, we know they were all about gold. They loved it, right? We've seen King Tut, gold stuff, right? So what do we have here? Oh, limestone. Good gold stuff. No. Oh, basalt. Great. Copper. Alabaster. Copper. Oh, a little bit of gold. Copper. Granite. Where the hell's the gold? Copper. Gold, 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 gold. But it's all south of the first cataract. So they couldn't sail upriver with soldiers and conquer. So instead they traded. They traded with these Nubians for their gold in the kingdom of Kush down here, KUSH. And they spread their Egyptian religion. And so this concept, this historical concept of expansion, core civilization, mother civilization to outlying territories, culture spreads, cultural diffusion, cultural diffusion. That's it. There are 6 cataracts. First, second. What's the third one? Oh, third, fourth, fifth, and another one that's so far down south that we can't even fit it on the map. That's people another place. What's that Boston basketball team? Americans. The word is Celt, not Celt. C-E-L-T is pronounced Celt. Okay? So Merkins don't know that. That's why they say, oh, the Boston Celtics. We're talking Celtic civilization here. Who the hell are the Celts and where did they come from? Now this is interesting. This is interesting. Don't start like writing the names on the map. Listen to me. How many of you think that, okay, we're looking at what being people that's not civilized yet, it's just a bunch of people. What color do you think they are? White. They're the earliest green because Boston Celtics uniform shamrock. Notice Celtics, Irish, the shamrock. The Boston Celtics have the shamrock as their you keep looking out this window and it keeps making me think there's some clown like playing peekaboo with me, and every time I turn around, you, Hannah.
What?
You do, you keep looking out the window and smiling. Anyway, back to our Celtic story. This is interesting. We're finally talking about white people. We've been talking about like Middle Eastern people so far. No white people. But the Greeks are coming, so it's time to ask where the hell they come from. Where did all these white people come from? Where did all these white people come from? They peopled the earth from where? Write the term Indo-European. Have we had that talk? Have we had that talk? It's a beautifully interesting talk. So here we go, Indo-European. The Indo-Europeans. And in fact, put in front of it, no, Indo-European migrations. The Indo-European migrations. where did Europeans migrate from? They didn't come straight from Africa.
Isn't it north?
Well, that's a teaser question. Okay, somebody please give me a vocal cord freezing gas grenade so I can just lob it over there. I've got pretty good grenade skills. I'm a veteran, so just like right in the middle of the early childhood center, and then they're all just down there going. And life's good. I didn't hurt them. I just silenced them. Okay. I listened to that daily for years. It's just, where were we? Where did white people come from? Okay. Now, they came from between two bodies of water. One of them is above Turkey. What's that big sea called above Turkey? If you don't know your geography here, let's keep our geography list going. Can you picture the map of Turkey and Greece? And then there's that big sea above Turkey and Greece. Touches on Russia.
Sweden.
Can you picture it in your head? Have you ever looked at a map?
Yeah.
Okay, so you know that that's the Black Sea? Do you know that?
Yes.
If you don't know that it's the Black Sea, well, know that it's the freaking Black Sea. It's called the Black Sea. That's why it's the Black Sea. So, Black Sea.
White people.
And then, here's the Black Sea. And then there's this weird looking sort of bean-shaped lake that's called a sea. Even Nicholas Grunwald doesn't know whether it's a sea or a lake. In other words, does it have salt water or is it fresh? He's going to check. Do you know, Fern? I don't know either. But it's called a sea. Anybody know what it's called? Can you picture it? Are we that geographically illiterate?
Yep. Baltic?
Dudes, that's the Black Sea. Anatolia or Turkey. The Mediterranean goes up around Greece and it spills into this. By the way, this is what the most interesting thing you'll ever hear. You see where Turkey and Greece touch each other? That was a solid cliff mountain. And this was all just a hollow, just a canyon. People lived there for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. Farmers, early civilized people. And then it broke. And the Mediterranean filled the Black Sea like a bathtub. How many years would it take this to drain into that bathtub floor? This bathtub to drain and fill that big freaking depression? And what types of myths might come from it? Do you hear me?
Noah?
Is that the most intense thing you've ever thought about? Because it would seem like a world flood.
Like Noah.
And you better get your ass a boat because the waters are rising. And if you're in the middle of it, holy mother of God, you can't see the shore because this is the Black freaking Sea. Now, do you get that? It's intensely interesting. And we have archaeological evidence that this did break. Yes?
How did it break?
Probably an earthquake or, maybe a bird just shat. And that was just enough to make a little rock start rolling and then I'm not on drugs, I'm just happy. I love thinking. Alright, so now, this is called the Caspian Sea. I am on caffeine and conversation with Mr. K, with whom I had lunch.
Oh, K is in Devon K.
As in Devon K. So that's the Caspian Sea. Now, why do we talk about the Caspian Sea and the Black Sea? Because between them there is a mountain. And that mountain is where, yes, what do we call white people if we want to call them a big word? Caucasian. Caucasian. And we're called Caucasians because we're thought to have migrated as Indo-Europeans from the Caucasus Mountains. Caucasus. Just take IAN off of Caucasian and put US at the end of it. Caucasus. The Caucasus Mountains is between those two. Caucasus Mountains. Right here. North of that is a steppe land. And that's where the Indo-Europeans were a pastoral tribe. So where did all of these, this is the most important peopling after the original Mesopotamians and Egyptians. Because where, this IE here stands for Indo-European, the P stands for Proto, meaning earliest. The dates, 3500 BCE. So 500 years before Mesopotamia urbanized. Mid 4th millennium BCE, just when we're on the cusp from agriculture to civilization. Here's Mesopotamia down here, advanced cultures. But up here, something weird happens. Now you tell me, we can picture a tribe, and they split in 3 directions, and they people 3 directions, and they settle in 3 directions, and they become the people who we know in history as Europeans, Iranians, and Indians. The Indo-European. Now here's my question, to make it fun. Do you think that genetics and geography, do you think geography like actually affects the genetics of a certain people?
It's
So I live in a mountainous region.
Yeah.
What type of people's genes will be selected to reproduce and survive? And what types of genes would not be selected in a mountainous region of thin air, cold climate? Give me a gene that would not be selected in a mountainous region. Give me whatever you have.
Maybe one that gives asthma.
Asthmatics would certainly probably not do well in a thin atmosphere, high elevation. So, what else?
People that aren't used to the cold.
People who don't, yeah, so people who like catch
Might have more hair.
cold or any types of,
Might have more hair on them.
hairier people. There you go, because that's fur, it'll keep you warm. Right, so any number of things, okay. So here's my question. What do you think the geography of Northern Europe would select for over a good 1,000, 2,000? When do these people, okay, you see the KEL? That's the Celts. And so Celts is a big umbrella term for all sorts of tribes that we know today as the French people, the Irish people, the Scottish people, not the Germans, Hungarians, Poles, British. They're all Celtic peoples. Notice, Celtic peoples are like Northern Europe above Italy, from Hungary over, and they go up into Britain. Germans are a different Indo-European people, and so forth. So not all of these are Celts, but all of these are Indo-Europeans. Speaking of which, let's talk a little bit more geography. We divide Europe between north and south of what, Africa between north and south of what major land formation? Come on, Africa is divided.
Sahara.
The Sahara, and so we call the area south of the Sahara, Jay, what?
Southern Africa.
Blank, blank Africa,
Oh,
based on the
Sub-Saharan.
Sahara.
Sub-Saharan.
Sub-Saharan Africa. And then and notice that's where Black Africa is, and north of it that's where Arab Africa is. Today, Arab Africa. Well, in the same way, what divides Europe east-west? The way the Sahara divides Africa east-west. Mountains. So let's just get this in our head, because we're talking about now the new geography of the new peoples. Because Europe breaks up civilization-wise and historically into southern Europe. And look at the map right there, and it shows you. We can go to a better map. Well, no, let's just stay on this one for a second. Because here's Italy. What are these mountains here north of Italy that just cut Italy off from Germany? The Alps. The Italian Alps, right? So that's the Alps. This isn't memorization stuff. This is actually figuring out really interesting things, like why did it take, why did the Roman Empire never go up and conquer Northern Europe? Because there were mountain barriers. The Alps. Why could the Roman Empire conquer Spain, but France was harder? Why was it so hard for the Greeks to conquer north into Hungary here, this plain in the center? Hungary's like this really weird bowl surrounded by mountains also. Because of mountains. And so, very, very quickly, the Alps above Italy. What are the mountains? You should know this. It's kind of cool to know, because when you're traveling, you're like, oh, I'm in these mountains. I know these mountains. What are the mountains above Spain, separating Spain from France? Start with a P.
Oh, the Pyrenees.
In Pyrenees?
I'm sorry, I can't
Or as we
say
say
it.
in English, the Pyrenees.
There you go.
Or Pyrenees? I don't know. Because I speak French like an American. So we've got a few more mountains then. Pyrenees. That's Spain to the south. So right on that neck of Spain, a little. And then the Alps above Italy. And above Greece. All right, Greece, Northern Europe. Pyrenees, Alps. Northern above it. That's where the Celts are. The Celts are in the north. So that's why we've got our French and our British Islanders and such. Now, what type of genes? Oh, and they came from the Caucasus. How do we know that they came from the Caucasus, and how do we know that they're related to these other people called Iranians? What? French people are related deep ancestrally to people from Iran and India? What? How do we know? Anybody have a guess? Oh, come on. I know you all have food comas from lunch. This is not boring. This is intellectual
Oh.
riddle time. Those of you who know, I pity you, because don't you wish you could talk? But I want everybody else to talk. We are saying that we know with fairly good certainty that people started up here, went over here, and down here. That's bizarre. How do we know that they started here and went there, and there 500 years before recorded history? 3500 BCE. Talk amongst yourselves. What types of evidence do you think makes people say?
Well, probably like the bones of like the human structure don't match. Yeah, they usually tell you where they were living, like how they were adapted.
Okay, pat yourself on the back if these things came out. First of all, language. You get Iranian language, Indian language, and Northern European languages, including actually Greek and Latin, because those are different Indo-Europeans. The Celts too, though. And you put the words, prehistoric words, not city words, because that's not prehistoric. What are the prehistoric words that we would use? Because we had language longer than we had cities. Orion, give me a word that we would use before we had cities. Yes, because we had language and we had societies.
City-states.
Huh?
City-states?
Huh? Before we had cities. Come on, guys. You're a person walking around with other people. What words would you need, even if there was no such thing as street, road, fight me?
Food.
Fight.
Food.
Okay. Food. What else? Socially. What words?
Go.
Socially.
One.
How about mom,
Friend.
dad, brother, sister? Come on. How about tree, river, sun, sky, rain, storm? All of those words. A storm is coming. We are nomads. That effing matters, right? You need this language. Fire. You list these pre-urban words, just down a list, all these different languages, and they will sound obviously similar. In India, father sounds like father like father in Greek, in Latin, in Celtic, in Farsi, in Persian. And so that's one thing. Pat yourself on the back if you said numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You do that, and you just listen to it. They don't sound exactly the same, but the same vowels and consonants. Very interesting stuff. So, and why would they split? Well, apparently maybe their herd got too big. Maybe two big chiefs got in a fight. Whatever. You took my woman. We're women. And archaeologically too. Pottery styles, maybe. Jewelry styles, maybe. Buried all around these places and found at the oldest levels up here. In any case, that's the Indo-Europeans. This is a very important group of people, because whatever culture they had as pastoralists, from ideas to social ways, they carried with them into 3 different areas. But once they got there, these guys stayed in Europe, these Celts, for a long time before anybody civilized them. So they're interesting. Let me tell you about the, so what do you think Northern Europe would select for? What type of traits do you think it would select for?
Like maybe not like oppressive sunlight, so maybe they're like colder areas than a lot of the places we've been looking at before.
Reese, remember last semester and that one thing I always requested you do?
Oh yeah, sorry. Like maybe just like they were, like their bodies were able to or adapted more to cold as opposed to heat, like because it's not as extreme of temperatures as it was in a lot of the other places we've been looking at.
Fern, I'm gonna let you talk.
Blonde hair, blue eyes, first name, absorption.
Fern, remember what I just asked Reese to do 10 seconds ago? Oh, but you can't. You can't. You gotta explain that to me.
I'm actually sick right now, so.
Oh, you've been sick for a while. Stop being sick. Okay, stop that. Okay, check out what your book says about hair color of the Celts. The Celts didn't write. They did have druids. That's the one thing you may have heard of. They had druids. These were priests. But they didn't write. But the Romans wrote about them, because every time the Romans crossed the Alps, they were like, damn Celts, right? And so did the Greeks. And this is what the Romans wrote. The Greeks and the Romans remarked particularly about the appearance. Here it is, genetics, white people, check it out. Does this sound like, have we carried any of these things? I'm a white guy, I get to do this. The Greeks and Romans, both white people too, which is odd, said, those Celts look weird. They remarked about the appearance of them. Their burly size, long red hair, which they often made stiff and upright by applying a cement-like solution of lime.
They had hair gel all
Let
the way
me
back
make a chimney on my head, a cement-like chimney of my red hair on top of my head, because I'm a Celt man and that's what we do. We're burly, we're loud, and we wear chimneys on our heads.
So like hair gel all the way back then.
Like what?
Hair gel all the way
Hair
back
gel,
then.
except, no, this is made of lime, which
No,
is a
but-
cement-like solution.
But a similar like
Shaggy mustaches and loud, deep voices. This is the Romans and the Greeks, who were fairly tough people themselves, talking about these Northern Europeans, and that just cracks me up. So, trousers, yes?
Do they have any influence on Irish people?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll get there. Trousers, usually an indication of horse riding peoples, and I think the horse did come from here. So they, no, but they got the horse later because the horse wasn't actually domesticated until like 2000 BCE. Trousers, usually an indication of, and twisted gold neck collars were similarly distinctive, but not as unusual as, ready? Not as unusual as the terrifying warriors who fought naked. That's a way to fight. I would at least wear one piece of clothing because there was one soft spot that I... and collected the skulls of defeated enemies. Okay, I won. Okay, got your skull. Let's go home. Interesting people, these Celts. The surviving accounts describe the Celts as, check it out, is this, I have to say, it reminds me of my home country. Describe the Celts as wildly fond of war. America has not been at war for like 17 years out of its 200 and not even 50 years. America has not been at war for only 17 years of its history. This is a fact. Now, and we can argue that fact with different interpretations, like, well, they're an empire, they have a responsibility, blah, blah, blah. But it's a fact, and no other country comes close in modern history to the number of years of war as the United States. It's crazy. Change in continuity over time. Do you see that this is not a tangent when you actually understand the historical thinking? Change in continuity over time. Is it possible that the earliest habits of the Celtic peoples and the Romans and the Greeks have actually like just stayed with us, continuous culture in terms of attitudes towards war, state expansion, state building, conflict? The surviving accounts, they're wildly fond of war. They're courageous. They are childishly impulsive and emotional. And fond of boasting and exaggeration. We're number one. we're number one.
Sounds like Beowulf.
America.
Yet quick-witted, they're not all bad. They catch on and learn really fast. And eager to learn. I don't know. Finally, let's talk about the Irish and the Welsh. This is all chapter 50. It's a great chapter. The warriors of Welsh and Irish legend reflect a stage of political and social development less complex. Like, really, can we get less complex than what we just talked about? So they're even less complex. The more you go away from civilization, they get like more and more barbaric, right? So on the islands, check them out. Then the Celts in Gaul, France. They raided one another's flocks. Okay, that's not very exciting. Reveled in drunken feasts. I think fraternity houses. I think fraternity houses in the United States. I think college fraternity boys. Reveled in drunken feasts. And engaged in contests of strength. House of pain, house of pain. Can you bench more than I'm benching? True? Feats of strength. What are your goals? How much are you going to bench this year? What's your max weight going to be, Max? And finally, contests of strength and wit. So they actually had comedy contests. That's pretty cool, and you can see that in the Irish today because they're the funniest people in Europe. The Irish are the funniest people in Europe. Finally, at banquets, warriors would. Anybody know this one? We got a banquet, there's a drumstick right there. I want that effing drumstick. That's a nice drumstick. It's big and juicy, and I'm a hungry man with cement chimneys on my head. They would fight to the death. They would fight to the death for the best cut of meat at the banquet. One person would end up dead at the banquet so that the other could choose what was called the hero's portion. The hero's portion. You're dead, good. Now, let me get the blood off.
Mr. Brill, have you ever read Beowulf?
Yes. This is total Beowulf.
Beowulf.
Yes. The Celts. Okay, so, welcome to Northern Europe. Oh, aren't the French and the Greeks going to have a good time with Northern Europe? Not the French, the Romans. All right. Let's move on to the Persians. Another Indo-European group. Any questions on the Celts? No, I'm sorry, they're busy Friday night. They won't go out with your girls. Okay. No? Huh? Okay.
Imagine how much more rewarding that meat would be to actually kill somebody for it. It's actually tastier.
Oh, it's so barbaric.
Oh, that sounds bad. That's my thing. Why is everybody so sick?
I don't know, it's freaking me out. Stop it, you can get the way out.
Okay, so to give you a closer look there, here's the Zagros Mountains. Do you see it? Does it help you see it? Zagros Mountains, Iran, Zagros Mountains. This is basic geography. These aren't minor mountains. This is basic geography of the region, right? And so when you say, Iran's sheltered and separated from Mesopotamia by the Zagros Mountains, again, you're just like, you know what? You're not impressive. You're just educated. You just know, like, the basic formations of the world. So look at Iran and tell me, interesting, this will be the biggest empire that the world has seen. Bigger than the Babylonian, bigger than the Assyrian. And tell me, silence your phone. What strikes you as weird about this place? Because it's going to be a major civilization. Look at it. There's just a glaring weirdness about it. Think of Egypt, think of this, and this is going to be? There's no river. So where'd they get their water?
Seas.
And also, what else? What else is the difference?
It's surrounded.
It's mountainous. High elevation, no rivers. And they're going to be a major civilization. How do they even eat? They used table water that seeps through the earth and collects underground, right? The water table, the aquifer. of their mountains, and they got smart enough to actually dig shafts down in there and find the water table underneath them. There's a water table underneath us right now. You know that, right? That's where our water comes from. It's down there. And we just like, I'm looking at all the water, we're just like pumping from it. It's not an infinite bathtub down there. The more we waste, the less we have like later, and it's running out because we've industrialized and we use so much water thoughtlessly. We've lost touch with where it comes from and how it all works. They knew how it worked, and they tunneled down and they found it, and then they said, here's what we can do. We can actually dig channels from the side of the mountain into the aquifer so that it irrigates from the mountain's aquifer. You get it? I'm on a hillside, and I'm going to just dig a tunnel straight into the hillside because I know that the water table, I've dug from the top, and I've found the water table, so I know it's there. So I actually dug tunnels in. When they hit the aquifer, the poor bastard that dug there gets washed out, dies, he's probably a slave, washed out, head banging on the tunnel as he goes. And voila, you've got irrigation. And so they're farming it. And feeding themselves. Now, if this is boring to you, why are you telling me this? What's the difference between that? A village saying, okay, we need to like take care of that tunnel that we built. A cat fell in it and it's clogged, versus the Mesopotamian river. And using that for irrigation and having problems with that. What's the difference?
The mountains seem easier to maintain.
The mountains seem easier to maintain. These are big rivers, they flood, and so that requires armies of people, and that requires a king and a powerful king to mobilize them and direct them and order them, build those dams, build those irrigation ditches, do what I say and do it now because this is a big river and it requires an army of people. These irrigation systems of the Persians were local village places, so Max is exactly right. They didn't require a big government and a big ruler. The village level could take care of that. And so they never had this tradition politically, geography influencing politics. Humans, the environment, and politics. These are all AP things. It's brilliant stuff. So they never had the need for a big king who would boss everybody around like an authoritarian. We said already that the Persian Empire would be the coolest empire in that it didn't boss everybody around. It respected everybody's freedom. Do you see the kind of, Sokov is seeing it. Do you see the very interesting point that's being made here? Authoritarian government, tolerant, non-authoritarian government, nature, government type. We talked about this in History of China with the Yellow River, China Sorrow. Okay, so, in any case, let's talk about Let's talk about the Persian Empire. When Babylonia took the Jews, held them captive for 50 years, oh, I'm sorry, we gotta have this conversation. Oh, Jesus. Essential questions are ones that I make up. The classical age is one where every single religion that's on this planet today is started in the classical age. Every single one except for Islam, a late religion. So, this is the age of, we are no longer kinship-based things. It's no longer extended family. So we can't trust each other to be good to each other. And so none of us can disagree with this. I like this question because we're going to think about this question together. You might write a comparative formative essay to practice that while answering a very interesting question. We cannot, I wrote this. This is a very interesting question. Human nature does run the spectrum from evil instincts, right? We see it through history, we see it today. greedy people who don't give a shit about anybody. Heartless people, ditto. Violent people, ditto. Human nature has that in it. We've got some really dark stuff in us. And we also have really good stuff in us. This is human nature. It is a mixture of good and evil. We can be compassionate. We can be selfless. You take it. Right? We can be peaceful. Oh, you're poor. Oh, no, I vote against war, whatever, right? So what are the best ways to tame these evil instincts? What are the best ways to tame them and strengthen the good ones in a society? Well, religion is the attempt of the ancient civilizations. How did the Jews try to tame evil? Discuss amongst yourselves. You're looking blank. How did the Jews, with their God, try to keep people from doing bad? That's a word. That's not an explanation.
Like, you know, like if you don't, then there will all be all these negative repercussions that will happen.
I'll have a bad attitude.
Yeah, go again.
It's bad.
Okay. Please take this down, just because I want to get you as far as the last class got, which is about the same place. If you put this, the threat of God's punishment, if we don't worship Him, so divine punishment, that's Judaism. We're talking about Judaism here. We're not talking about Christianity. That's not up here, Miley. I'm telling you what to write down. It's not up here. Divine punishment and laws to obey, commandments. Be good to your mother and father. Don't lie. Don't murder. Yada, yada, yada. All the 10 commandments. Those ethical commandments. And if you disobey them, you're disobeying my law, and I will punish you. This is the divine father model, the paternal model, an angry God. And I'm quoting God Himself in the Bible. He says, "I am an angry and jealous God." He describes Himself as angry in the book of Genesis. So that's one way. Yes.
If God is being so angry and jealous, how is that setting a good example to be selfless and peaceful?
Do as I say, not as I did. Not as I do. Just like Dad says, right? Now, your textbook, like traditional European Caucasian historians from Europe, which is the land that is a Judeo-Christian culture, they're the ones who get to decide what to call things in English. Let's call it the Middle East. And West Asia's going, what? Right? Because Caucasians, Europeans, got to decide how to so they called Judaism ethical monotheism. Oh, they're special because their one Godism is ethical. It's about being good and moral. I think that's a very challengeable claim. I'm not saying that it's totally wrong, but I think that there are weaknesses to that. In what ways is, from today's perspective, would we say that this monotheism of the Jews is not as ethical as it could be, as moral as it could be? Anybody? Did God love everybody equally?
No. Loving the chosen ones.
He loved the Jews. And in fact, when other people were in the Jews' way, what did He tell them to do to those other people that were not Jews who worshipped Him?
Kill them.
He told the Jews to kill them.
If you fight them, I'll keep you alive or something.
To kill them all, in fact, and their trees, and their livestock, and their dogs. The Canaanites, He told the Jews to kill them all when they took the promised land. Every single one of them, except for their daughters. He told them He could keep them. What did He do to the people of the flood?
He killed them all.
Okay, so I love one group, but not all groups equally, so on and so forth. Now, so there are ways that this Jewish God, now how many of you said another way that Judaism works is by promising heaven if you're good? How many of you said that? Good, because you know that there is no heaven to go to in Judaism. There is no afterlife in Judaism beyond maybe we're shadows eating dirt, literally. It's mentioned twice in the Hebrew Bible. So here's the interesting thing then. Let's talk about the Persians. What's the Persian religion? Here it is. And it's the same question. It's the same question. How are the Persians trying to make people good? Persian religion was called Zoroastrianism. Zoroastrianism. Yes?
They promised an afterlife?
Yeah, I'm going to go through because we got 3 minutes. Here is their religion. And their prophet's name was Zoroaster. So just put an ER between that TR, Zoroaster. That was their prophet's name. You'll also hear him called Zarathustra. Nietzsche, Friedrich Nietzsche, the great German philosopher, wrote a book. He was their prophet.
He was their prophet.
And he wrote their scripture, which is called the Gathas, 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 Gathas. We don't know when he lived. Some people think 1700 BCE, some people think 500 BCE. We don't know. Zoroastrianism teaches this. Tell me what it sounds like. Here we are. This is where it just gets incredibly interesting. The Bible, the Hebrew Bible has been closed. It's done. It's the Old Testament. It's the Hebrew Bible. So that can't be affected anymore. That won't be changed. We're in the Second Temple period. But the Persians ruled them, so these ideas are in Judea, in Jerusalem, for hundreds of years until Alexander the Great wipes them out. This is what Zoroaster teaches. Molly, this is what Zoroaster teaches. That there was a god named Ahura, A-H-U-R-A, A-H-U-R-A, Mazda, like the car, Mazda, Ahura Mazda, and he is the good God. And Ahura Mazda is locked in cosmic war with a bad god, an evil god. And people are, here we are. Ahura Mazda is the good Lord who created the universe. He created the universe, so a good God created the universe. And the universe is a cosmic battlefield because there is an evil God. There are two gods now. Did the Jews have this God of evil?
No. Well, I mean,
They certainly did not. Satan in the Bible was God's helper. Satan and God had conversations. Satan tempted Job for God. They made bets. They were kind of like drinking buddies. Seriously, they conversed. So, don't pack. Ahura Mazda, the wise Lord, created the world. Here's the bad Lord. Angra, as in angry. I wonder if there's a relation. A-N-G-R-A. Mainu, M-A-I-N-Y-U, was the evil spirit who had a demon army. The evil god with a demon army. The universe is a cosmic battleground between Ahura Mazda and Angra Mainyu and his demon host. At the end of time, one will win and one will lose, and the good will win. Every individual human's job is to side with either the good God or the bad God. And if you side with the bad God, you will be judged at the end of time and sent to hell. And if you side with the good God, he will make a new world that has no evil because we just defeated evil. And it's an all-good world. And you'll live forever in it. And that's Christianity in so many ways. Last paragraph. You don't really have to write this down. This is to summarize it. Zoroastrianism preached belief in one supreme deity. Don't pack. One supreme deity in high ethical standards. And it promised salvation. Healing of sins. Expanding with the advance of Persian Empire, it may have influenced Judaism and thus indirectly Christianity. God and the devil, heaven and hell, reward and punishment, the Messiah and the end of time all appear in Persia when it conquers Israel. So look at change over time with the gods of Abraham as they become the gods of Jesus. interesting stuff. We'll talk about Plato and how that puts its last mark on Christianity for homework. So give me until like 5 o'clock after school today, and I will have that up for you, that homework. Thank you. The quiz, taken at home. It's on Moodle. It's Moodle. It's on Schoology. It's a Schoology quiz. We use Moodle. I use Moodle. I'm trying to have that instead of Schoology.
That's cool. Joe, talk.
Good luck.